y'all enjoy the film?
Yes, come get me.
Back out restrooms for that. Hi, how are y'all?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. I will give it some.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ira Sachs is here for you.
I'm so glad to be here, and it's so special for me to be here in Utah at this time with this film. I am a happily married man, and I am very. This film is it begins, the catalyst is certainly issues that are very timely in our culture. Ultimately, I think it's a film about all of us, and it's the story of of love. But I have to say, it's great to be in Utah, and thank you. Things have changed. If you guys have questions, I would be glad to take them. And I want to say that my co-writer, Mauricio Zacharias, is here. Producers, Ira Patel and Lucas Joaquin are also here. So. Any questions?
Have you sold your film yet?
I was just telling you, I was on my phone because we are selling our film as we speak to all of you. This is my 6th time with a film at the Sundance Film Festival. I started coming here in 1979 when I was only 14, but my father lives in Park City, so I really learned about film growing up and going to Sundance and getting to see these incredible, different kinds of stories. So, and every time you come here, the most scary thing is whether or not anyone's going to buy your film, which means that people will see your film. So we're very happy we're going to leave here with a deal, and that people in the country will see. That's our business, so let's talk about creativity. Yes? The question was about the artwork in the film and who did the artwork. Ben's paintings are actually by my husband, who's a painter. His name is Boris Torres. And Boris did the paintings for Ben, and he worked very closely with John Lithgow. John is a kind of hobby painter. He's been painting since he was in his teenage years. He knows how to paint, which was really useful. So when you see him painting on the roof, it's actually, he's painting it. Boris had just done all these little setup, so we had 3 or 4 different stages of that painting, and then John would just do stuff on top to match. They spent a day together kind of practicing and technique and things like that. So that's really where the central painting comes from. We decided the complicated thing was what kind of painter he was going to be as a character, and it was very helpful. At a certain point we decided that Ben would be a very good painter, that we would like his paintings, that we wouldn't necessarily, think he was gonna, have a solo show at the Museum of Modern Art, but he was gonna be a very unique artist with a real vision and with a seriousness and a rigor, and I think that elevated everything in the film. Once we decided he was good, and that's, I think, was something that really helped John understand the character. For me, I'll just say one thing, since I've talked about my husband briefly, but I've made 4 other features and a bunch of short films, and I've always made films about how love destroys individuals. that's sort of what I knew in my life. And I made a film called Keep the Lights On, which is a little bit about that. In the wake of that time, I met my partner, who then became my husband, and only in my 40s have I discovered that love possibly can grow and blossom with time. And it's really changed my work. We have twins who are 2 years old as of last week. And I think being a father has really affected my filmmaking, and I think there is, I think love is possible, and that's kind of part of what I hope the movie shares with the audience. I will just say, I think Boris and I, as I said, we got married 2 years ago when it was 4 months legal in New York State. And when we got married, we invited people the day before. It was kind of like it was really like a joke because it was so new. We were like, oh, we're going to get married. Isn't that cute? What's been really interesting is how profound it is as a person to be allowed to show my love in a public way and to be recognized as within my country and within my culture as a first-class citizen. And I have to say, it's much more profound. Not to be polemic, but it just meant more than I expected it to. And that's what's been the kind of personal effect of marriage equality in my life. Yes?
So, what a beautiful film. And there are two scenes in it that just made me think so much of Truffaut, and I didn't know if that was an influence on you or not. The one where you're going through the city and the music is in the background.
Yes.
And then the last scene, of course, with his face in the sun.
Yes. So the question was, if Truffaut was an influence on the film, particularly the two scenes, the scene where we're seeing sort of shots out the window, it's actually Brooklyn. It's like our Brooklyn montage. And then the scene at the end where you're seeing the face of the boy. I think I learned about cinema. I lived in Paris in 1986 for 3 months, and I didn't speak French, as I've told you. And I wasn't studying, and I didn't learn anything. And I was in college, and I ended up going to the movies. It's really where I discovered cinema, and I saw 197 films in a 3-month period, and I decided to be a filmmaker. And of course, I saw all of Truffaut at the time. So I certainly not a conscious, oh, I'm going to do Truffaut, but and I think Mauricio, who also knows the history of cinema, much like I do, very influenced by European cinema in general. I think you don't even know where the film begins and where it's your memory. So Truffaut is just part of my past in a lot of ways. So yes.
Up here, Tom.
Yes.
Hi. I noticed there were a lot of shots that were held for a really long period of time. Is that something intentional?
It's funny, I think this is my fast film. So, I think you're talking about rhythm when you're editing a film, and I think I'm interested in giving people space to enter into the shots. I don't actually think of this film as, for me, duration is longer than what you've got here. There is a shot, I think significantly, the stairwell with the boy, which is a long shot. And I think that's not meant to be long, but it's meant to actually, what I noticed, we had different angles of that shot. But every time you cut it and did something closer or did some piece, it took away something of your connection to that experience, of that whole kind of process of letting something, letting the grief out and then moving on. And I liked watching it. And then I felt that the stairwell somehow represented a lot of different things, and I won't put words to it, but I felt like there was something the audience could experience about just having to sit with that for a moment. That is spiritual, and I think there is something strange in that, I guess I would say.
We have time for one more.
Yeah.
The rollout at the end. Can you talk about your timing, the choice of timing? Because at various different points as they roll out, you can create a different message at the finish point and the facial expression. Can you talk about that?
So you're talking about it in the last shots on the street and
Yes.
the skateboard. So the question was, why did we choose to end where we did, and the different series of shots. It was, I would say, one of the more carefully crafted, even though a lot of what you're dealing with is accident. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about film. So you're not like trying to know, it's a little like poetry, and you hope this word plays against that word, or this image plays against that image. What I wanted and what I asked of that boy, and I do have a good story, which for some reason I haven't told, so I'm going to tell one second. But I asked Charlie to move on, to move on from where he was in the scene before, and to find something, to think about things about future, and to think about things about pleasure, and things about happiness, and I asked him to smile. And he's very good at taking direction and turning it into his own. And I wanted that story to take place in the film. This is my third or fourth film that ends with someone on a street moving forward. I don't know, it's a repeated motif, and I think it has to do with an open sense of the unknown but the possible that I like myself when I leave a movie. And I think that it was something I was trying to get at. I will tell you that to shoot that scene, we shut down a street on the West Village called Morton Street. And we had cops, and we had lots of, it was not that easy to shut down a street in New York, and we had done it, and I'd hired this young teenage girl to play the skateboarder, and all I had done as an audition is she had sent me, along with some other people, her skating on a street in the suburbs, and I'd seen it, and I don't really know anything about skating, and so I thought, if you could skate, you can skate. And so here she'd skated a little bit. So there we are on set, and we have 40, 50 crew members, and golf carts, so we get this shot back and forth, and I'm looking at her, and she's down the street with her father. She can't skate at all. And she's like, you can see she's starting to sweat. I mean, it was very poignant, because she was just a bad skater, and they're like, well, she'll practice, and I'm like, she's not gonna, this isn't, she can't learn how to skate in the afternoon, and so I thought, well, we're either gonna shut down and do this another day, or something magical is gonna happen, so I kind of was like, I told a few of the PAs to run to the pier and see if they could find any skaters, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw a ponytail pass by, like half a block away, and I was like, that might have been a girl skater, but I don't know. I don't know what it was. And so I turned to my producer, Jay Van Hoy, and I said, I think that was a skater, and he ran down the street. Alfred Molina was arriving in a van. Jay got on that van. He followed that girl 4 blocks to the PATH train, which is the train to New Jersey. He went down to the train and stopped her before she went into the subway and said, do you want to be in a movie? And she said, and she was a skater, and she said, sure. So she came back, and that's who you see tonight. That's all we have time for. The film will be released in the year 2014, so please tell your friends if you like it. Thank you so much.